everybody, and welcome once again to IGN's News, Games, and More. This is the show where we talk about the news and the games and all the other stuff. And today is actually a surprisingly heavy entertainment day. We've got all sorts of crazy announcements. Some of this sounds like it was, written by Mad Libs or procedural generation, but we'll be having a nice discussion about that. I'm Max Scoville. I might have forgotten to mention that, but I'm joined right now by my good pals Sydney Goodman, Matt Kim, and Nick Lamone.
Hey, how's it going, dude?
Hello. Sorry, I think that
everyone's so quiet today.
Well, because sometimes everyone says hi, and then it's like everyone's saying hi, and when everyone says hi, no one says hi because you can't make out what anybody's saying. So then,
I don't know. Having a conversation over the computer in 2020 sure sucks. So what are you going to do about it, Matt? I think you're muted in Discord, and we're trying to talk in there, but I've got you muted on vMix, but I don't know.
That's why I can't hear Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be it. Anyway, we're fix it on the fly. We've been doing this stuff we found out this morning, we've been doing this all remotely for 107 days.
I think after the summer of gaming, we've all become pros at talking via the internet.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing that just really I love is that if you are, you want to take a break or go on a, not be at work when you're in quarantine, like, where are you going to go? The bathroom? Like, you going to go in the yard? I don't know. Anyway, let's get into this. Let's talk about the actual stuff. Obviously, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the biggest games in the world right now. Everyone's very excited about learning more about it. We have seen kind of some significant chunks of it, but as good sort of pre-release material usually is, CD Projekt Red has always been like, this is maybe not reflective of the final game. And we found out that there is a small tweak that they made to some of the stuff we saw in early demos, and there's going to be less wall running than initially maybe we thought we had. One of the first demonstrations they gave, there was these mantis arms you can get that allow you to sort of perch up there.
This is an outrage.
Are you mad?
This is No, I don't actually.
Is this a deal breaker? You're here to hear first. Nick isn't playing Cyberpunk because of this.
Yeah, I canceled my pre-order right now. No, I'm just kidding. This really isn't that big of a deal. I don't know people who are actually upset about this. It just seems like one of those things like, oh, okay. What CD Projekt Red has said is that there will still be means of navigating the environment that are just like other than your feet. What I interpret that as, there are areas and sections of a map that maybe you can still like cling to a wall and then do like a cool Splinter Cell style assassin move, but maybe you just can't do it whenever you want now. I think it's fine.
Yeah, that seems... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
We're like those. I feel like this is the thing I hate the most about these, like, doing this over remotely as well. We'll turn into those like really polite gophers from Looney Tunes. It's like, after you, my dear. No, of course, your turn. Go ahead.
Anyway,
go ahead, Sid.
So I was going to say, kind of just to echo what Nick was saying in terms of, they did say that there won't be wall running, but there will be other means of traversal. And I don't know, this might be a dumb question, but
no such thing.
I don't know, Nick. I have some pretty dumb questions. No, but I mean, like, I think this reveals that I just have a very basic understanding of game development. But I'm curious what tipped them off in terms of being like, nah, this isn't going to work. Because clearly it was working well enough that they showed us in a gameplay demo. So,
I mean,
how come this late in the process they're just like, no, thanks?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they built an entire world. They built a whole city that you can navigate, and maybe wall running works in the particular vertical slice that they were showing off for the E3 demo. But upon sort of like opening it up and doing like more play testing for other missions or other parts of the world, maybe there's stuff where the camera it messes with it, or it's hard to navigate, or maybe it just makes missions too easy, or just completely I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't fun, or too much trouble, or crashed the game, or I don't. I don't think it's unlikely that this happens a fair amount. Like thinking about this, like look at Just Cause. Like Just Cause is a game where you can grapple hook onto anything. Like you can flip every which way, and most people use that as like a weird physics sandbox. But then flip side, you get a grappling hook in Far Cry 4 and some of the more recent ones, but like it's like a specific place you can grapple to. Like it's not like you can just go like flipping every which way. And I think it depends on sort of what kind of a gameplay experience you want to create. Like if you have the sort of, I guess sort of the the chemistry set, so to speak, of like letting players just completely mix stuff up and see what happens. That's one way to go about it. But like, this is first and foremost a role-playing game, and I think like, weird parkour navigation and like climbing walls maybe just throws too much of a monkey wrench into things for that.
I will accept that as an answer.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sid.
And CD Projekt Red really strikes me as a company. Like, again, this isn't insider information. I'm just speculating on my part based on kind of their caliber as a developer who's kind of garnered a lot of public interest over the years. They strike me as a group of people who really trust their gut when it comes to game design. If they are implementing something, they want to make sure it feels good at every level of gameplay and all throughout the entire game. And if for some reason something just, they're like, oh, I don't know if this works particularly well, I don't think they're really precious about stuff, and they're more than happy to kill their darlings if it improves the overall, I guess, design cohesion behind the game. I mean, look at something like Titanfall 2. That is a game that is designed for wall running. That is part of the spectacle of that game. And then, conversely, you have something like Brink. Do you guys remember Brink? It was like a 2007, 2008 shooter that was like, we're all about parkour, but it didn't feel good. So no one played that game. And now it's just relegated to a joke at this point. So I think CD Projekt Red is doing the right thing here by axing something that might be just additional fluff in a game that's already probably pretty dang big.
I like that. Yeah, no, I think like looking at it, Titanfall is that's a game that is like you run and you shoot and you wall run. Like that's like a core sort of tenet for that. This is a game about navigating an entire world that they built from the ground up, and for the first and foremost, it's about storytelling. Like it's a role playing game, and I feel like if there's maybe it could have also been like an AI thing, like maybe having enemies that were like, maybe they'd sort of focused on having them shoot people who are on the ground, and suddenly the game just becomes way too easy if you're like, hanging off the ceiling like a sprinkler or whatever.
Like a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Turns out NPCs like dogs can't look up,
Wait, dogs can't look up?
That's one of those rumors that I've heard for so many years. I don't think that's actually true, but it's one of those things that it's funny enough that you'll just repeat it randomly just to spark a little bit of doubt.
Sid, have you seen Shaun of the
Dead? Dog.
Huh? Have you seen Shaun of the Dead?
No, they're zombies. I don't like zombies.
You're busted. You got to watch Shaun of the Dead. That's a good movie.
Dogs can look up.
Anyway, here's some comments about this story. Be Betterer says, well, this makes the combat a lot less cool. Love the wall running slow motion swear word. In the voice of RoboCop, this game is in trouble. I like that. I love when people do impressions in comments. Like they just.
It's theater of the mind. It really adds a little flavor.
Yeah, I mean, if wall running was your number one, thing to make you excited about Cyberpunk, like maybe you were, like getting excited about the wrong part of it. Like I think because that's like we talked about this a bit on sort of like summer gaming stuff, but like if you come at this expecting a first person shooter or GTA with robot arms, like you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is based on a pen and paper RPG. Like that is the core of what Cyberpunk is. It's all about making your own story. For the people who might be a little bit upset about the lack of wall running / parkour, maybe keep an eye out for that Cyberpunk anime from Studio Trigger, Edge Runners. I don't know what it's about. No one does, but just based on the name and the cool screen splash art that we got, maybe it's very like Mirror's Edge style anime, which could be a lot of fun set in Night City. That'd be dope. That'd be really cool.
Or play that game they showed off at the Xbox Direct of like that. What is that one dude made it? And it's like
Ghost Runner.
Ghost Runner. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I played the demo for that on Steam. It was available for just like a few weeks, I want to say, and then they removed the demo. But if you want a Cyberpunk first-person parkour assassin simulator, that game is incredible. It's so much fun. It's one of those games where you will always try and beat your time. And you will always try to be like, that didn't look as cool as it could have because I messed up. So you play it over and over and you're like, okay, that was badass. I'm going to do that more.
It's going to be pretty messed up if they take wall running out of that game.
Oh, man, that would be an outrage. And then just put RPG elements in it. Ugh, gross.
Here's a comment. PlayStation Gen says, I don't know who wrote this, but like wall running and should not cut it. That what problem with this studio? I don't believe it's coming out in November. I don't think they're going to delay it again. I did this once and they delayed it, and then it got delayed again. And I maybe they will delay it, but also I don't think they're going to delay it because they're especially not going to delay it because of like they're like, people really wanted wall running. We better add it back in. We're going to have to push it until 2022.
Imagine if they recant.
What if, though, this is like a giant social experiment for their real game and there is no Cyberpunk, but there's like this other game that they're developing and it's like a social experiment and Cyberpunk is part of the social experiment. And then in like 2 years, they're like, psych, everyone, we've delayed Cyberpunk for an additional 2 years, but now is time for the real game. It's coming out in 5 years.
It's actually just The Witcher, and Geralt and Ciri just took a portal to a cyberpunk future, and this is what we're seeing right now. This is Witcher 4, everyone. Just kidding. That's a lie.
Magical mushroom trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Ciri does exist in this universe. Like she did come here.
Yeah, I hope, coming from CD Projekt Red, I hope there's a fun little nod to it. And they don't strike me as to be like, hey guys, look at this Easter egg. Isn't this cool? I think it'd probably be like she's maybe smoking in a bar or something and then she kind of disappears. I think that would be appropriate.
I think it'd be pretty cool if Geralt just walks up to you and he goes, hello, my name is Geralt of Rivia. And then people would all be like, did you catch a crazy Easter egg? And it's like, that's not what an Easter egg is. It's just a point blank reference. So one thing to consider while we're still talking about Cyberpunk and wall running is that they have announced that there's going to be a multiplayer component for this at some point. It's going to be, they're treating it like a full on another AAA component. It's not going to be like, oh, we added, PvP into Cyberpunk. They're totally doing it from not maybe the ground up, but like it's going to be substantial. And they've said that they don't think they're going to be talking about that until probably 2022. But maybe they're like, wall running is dope as hell, but it works better in a more real-time based thing rather than stats-based combat. Like, let's save this for the, PvP multiplayer.
I think this is going to sound weird, but I really hope their multiplayer mode isn't shooter-based. Like how Gwent was kind of the de facto multiplayer spin-off of The Witcher 3. I kind of hope that their multiplayer is like, I don't know, maybe like a turn-based strategy RPG or something like that.
There were rumors that because there's a trading card game that's like a tabletop style game called Netrunner.
Oh, I love Netrunner.
It went out of production for a while, and people were speculating: did CD Projekt Red buy Netrunner so that they could implement another trading card game into Cyberpunk? So
Wizards of the Coast owns Netrunner as like a gameplay. And a company called Fantasy Flight actually licensed the mechanic. The mechanic was for the Wizards of the Coast version, but they took the mechanic and they created their own cyberpunk universe around it called Android. And that's a really dope asymmetrical card game. And then Wizards of the Coast declined to renew Fantasy Flight's license for the mechanics, so they could no longer produce the game because they didn't have the rights to the gameplay mechanic anymore. And
so you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, there's a theory that Wizards of the Coast took it back for Cyberpunk, but I really liked Android Netrunner, and I still feel bad about it. Like, it was really cool.
Fingers crossed.
What if they make a racing game? Like, how pissed would everyone be? Everyone's like, they're going to have wall running. No, it's going to be net running. No, it'll be like an RTS. And then they're like, we are happy to announce Cyberpunk racing. We have cars already.
That'd be dope, honestly. I love it when RPGs have, like, Final Fantasy VII has, like, 15 to 20 different mini games that make zero sense in the context of the story. I miss that level of just, like, I don't know, throw a basketball mini game in there. It'd be fun. That'd be so cool if they did something like that.
I'm dying to see what like the weird, the sidetracky mini game in this is, because like Gwent was like hilarious because it'd be like, oh no, the wild hunt is coming. They're gonna tear everybody apart. They're gonna ruin the earth. And then it was like, but also time to collect all the trading cards.
Geralt has a problem. All right, you have a trading card problem, and we should really address that in the next meeting.
That's why he transports himself to the future to get new cards and just continue this. It's a vicious cycle. But going back to the multiplayer thing, if I had to do like a pie in the sky, what I really want from a multiplayer in Cyberpunk, not to veto Matt's idea completely, because I do really like the idea of veering away from the first-person shooting. But I think it'd be cool if they implemented something. Did you guys ever play Syndicate, or have you ever heard of Syndicate?
Yeah.
I like the idea of having a corporate style, like you send a team of corporate hitmen to go commit tactical like espionage, like corporate espionage and sabotage. And I think if you have like this is wild. I'm gonna go on a tangent, guys. This is like if you have two corporate types who are leading two opposing factions, and they are the ones who are financing a hit squad to take out another company, and it's like 5v5, one corporate on each side, and then 4 hitmen on each side, and you kind of buy them weapons as a corporate type and set up traps and stuff. I think that'd be kind of cool and kind of fitting tonally with the Cyberpunk universe.
That sounds a lot like the stuff they do in GTA Online with like people running, running corporations and stuff. Syndicate actually got re-released or rebooted in, I want to say 2013 or so.
It's a solid reboot. Like it's very different from what it used to be, but I think that game's cool, man.
I mean, the weird irony of like a massive global game about, cyberpunk global dystopian corporations, and then getting this like, underwhelming but still ambitious reboot from EA where they're like, yes, we took the beloved thing and we've made it according to what our board meetings said we should make, and it just kind of got swept under the rug. I had a good time with that one. That was kind of cool, but I never got like it. I would be very surprised if the people at CD Projekt Red are not big fans of the original Syndicate games. Like that seems like the sort of thing they would be pretty into.
It's pretty old school, like hardcore RPG. I'm sure there's tons of fans. It is like, speaking a little bit to like the cyberpunk dystopia, again, I just think it's kind of funny that we have a company like CD Projekt Red who has like gone from a small studio to becoming this giant, massive corporation that's backed by a country. That kind of setup sounds like a corporation in a cyberpunk universe. So it's just like, wow, life imitates art, or art imitates life.
Well, anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Crysis. We know we're getting a Crysis Remaster, which is supposed to be. It's from the. What's it from? I forget what other stuff they did, but it's not being developed directly by Crytek. It's
Saber Interactive.
Saber Interactive. What did they do? What did they do?
Saber was the studio behind the Witcher 3 Switch port, the Switcher 3.
Oh, nice.
Okay, yeah. So if anybody can get Crysis running on a Switch, that should be them. You'd think. Well, apparently they had a trailer and release date. Sort of all lined up that got leaked, and everyone was like, it doesn't look so hot, and proceeded to basically be like, oh, we're gonna put it back in the oven.
Isn't this coming out in like a month?
Yeah, okay, so that's what I was just, to jump in here, that's what I don't know that I understand, because isn't it only being delayed like a few weeks? Like it's only being delayed a little bit amount of time. So I'm just kind of confused how much they think that they can get done if the reviews and the feedback is really that bad in the matter of a couple weeks, versus like, oh, we're like indefinitely delaying this and going back to the drawing board and like really gonna make some changes.
I think they just are using the time to fix a couple .ini files. That's a joke for people who have ever tried to play Crysis on modern PCs. But no, I think it's just like an optimization thing. Again, I'm not a developer, so I don't know how long it actually takes to make things like, oh, this is 58 frames. Let's bring this up to 60, guys. But I mean, I don't think they would set an arbitrary deadline like that unless they were sure they could do it.
Yeah, I'm sure at this point of development, it's really just finding areas that they can slim down to make the overall game run smoother. And like, that's a thing that you can just find pretty easily if you had more time, because then you have more time to dig into the game and find out, oh, we can probably pare this down or pare that down. And I it was my guess.
I mean, the first game was kind of like, I don't know that it was unoptimized. I did some research on Crysis just because I've always wondered, why is it that people always hold Crysis up as like, this will melt your graphics card? And it turns out, like, I think Crytek was kind of partnered with, I want to say it was NVIDIA or Intel, and Crysis was a showcase of actual PC hardware. And so it was designed in an era where dual core processors were pretty prominent in the PC gaming industry. And so the game itself feels like it was optimized for dual cores. If you were to try and play Crysis on modern CPUs, which are usually like 8 to 11 cores, I want to say, it has a hard time kind of like, there's still some noticeable chugging, especially if you're in some high action areas. So I'm wondering if that holdover from old technology is kind of persisting to the, like maybe the developers over at Saber Interactive are reaching that same bottleneck that bottlenecks so many CPUs trying to run Crysis. I don't know. I'm not a hardware guy. I just like to say a lot of words and pretend I know what I'm talking
You
about.
sound like a hardware guy.
I know. I was just saying, okay, well then I
You
guess
shouldn't
I
have
just
said you
don't
weren't a
even know what
hardware
a
guy.
computer is.
I'm just kidding. I totally am.
Crysis came out in what, 2007? Like that's that's an old game. Like that's been around for a cool minute. It's kind of surprising that I know that it's not as simple as just like dragging and dropping or like tightening up the graphics on level 3 or whatever, but like that Nick, what you're saying, that does make some sense. Is it's not so much just like, fidelity, resolution, and like how fast the thing is running. It's also like how, resources are being allocated and like where the CPU is being pointed. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the graphics does, but like, like I try to get Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, which came out in 1995. I tried to get that running on Windows 10, and it had like major lag, and that's a game of like clip art moving slowly across the screen. Like it does not
clip art.
Yeah.
But if you think about it though, like what you experience trying to play your Spider-Man clip art Flash cartoon thing, that is very similar, again, on a microcosm of what developers are running into when it comes to bringing old games to new hardware. It's not, you don't just export as .ps4, .ps5, and then you're good to go, It takes some real nitty gritty. Like anyone who's ever modded anything on a PC will probably just be like, okay, I have the tiniest inkling of how much of a train wreck developing a video game could possibly be. Just the tiniest. Because it's still very, very different. So hopefully it's good. And I'm wondering if this game, as a remastered, will push 2080 Ti's to the limit. I think it'd be really cool if we got another game that was like, this will melt your graphics card again. That'd be pretty cool. I'd like to see something like that.
I feel like the game that's going to be really, being used to benchmark stuff is going to be like Cyberpunk running at full specs, like turned up all the way.
RTX on, baby.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot. But
I don't know if you guys have seen the Ultra HD 4K mods for The Witcher, but that game looks amazing on a fully spec'd, modded out version of it.
Dude, I've spent so much time modding Witcher 3 just to get it work, and then when one mod doesn't work and you just wasted like 4 hours, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Same with Skyrim, man.
It's so buttery, if it works.
I am excited, though. Speaking of mods, I'm excited in a world where Cyberpunk 2077 has the mod community behind it, where we can just throw in like custom-made quest markers and stuff like oh man, the possibilities are endless. Oh, so exciting. I'm getting myself worked up for no reason.
Yeah.
It's too early. It's November 19th.
Mods stress me out. I feel like every time I try to use a mod, I break something. So I wish that I had the passion for mods that you do, but my like cycle of mods has been with GTA, and I'll be like, oh, this mod seems cool, and then I'll like figure it out, and then something will break, and then I'm like in a Discord channel with a friend who used to work in IT, and I'll be like, hey, please help, and then I'll have to share my screen, and then it's like 3 hours of that, and then like I give up, and I'm like, okay, I'll just watch YouTube videos of this mod. So I can't say hold the same regard of mods as you do, Nick, but I definitely understand how confusing they are.
I have the old dad appeal when it comes to like mods. You know how like there's like the stereotype that dads are just really into new tech, where they're like, oh man, look at this TV. Isn't this TV really cool? And they're like, well, what's different about it? And then they open the manual and they're trying to scan for information. Like I feel like I approach mods with that kind of enthusiasm, but I mean, I've made it work after enough time,
I think my favorite mod I encountered, I was talking to this lady at GDC, and she was telling me about like how she worked on some Far Cry or some Fallout mods, and one of them was she modded it so that when the dog walked on metal, you didn't hear its toenails clicking because that grossed her out. And like every time I hear my dog walk on the laminate floor, I'm just like, that lady would hate it here. She would be trying to mod my dog to she put socks on him or something. I don't know.
That's tragic.
Okay, wait, sorry. I know that you want to move on, but I'm going to stop because I don't want to sell myself short. I actually was really into the mod community for The Sims 2 and 3. And I got those to work. That's a hardcore and I was really good about it. Yeah. And I would change the meshes, and like I knew what I was doing, and that's how I learned Photoshop. And I think that it's because I was working on a pre-built PC rather than the janky ones that I have built myself. So I just don't want to sell myself short. You can do anything if you put your mind to it, except maybe not if you built the PC.
Right.
Wow.
Don't let your
Anyway,
dreams just be dreams.
So apparently modding stuff on PC or trying to develop games makes us all feel stupid, but something that makes us all feel very smart is Beavis and Butthead, and they're back, baby.
Yeah.
So this is
That was
I
a
think,
great
like,
segue.
Thank you. This is, I think, great news. Maybe it might suck. I don't know, but it's Comedy Central scooped up 2 new seasons of Beavis and Butthead. It is going to be a new incarnation that will reimagine the characters and their misadventures for a 2020 setting, as the original done for Generation X. The new Beavis and Butthead will satirize Gen Z culture, even as it explores the titular duo's wacky misadventures. I'm hoping that they don't change them. I hope that they're exactly the same dumb little shorts and shirts. So I guess if you go into Urban Outfitters, it's like that's like almost fashionable again, like just wearing.
Yeah, but it would cost you $300.
They're wearing like Tom's shoes and like fake vintage AC/DC tour shirts. But yeah, no. So this is I'm pretty stoked about this. They did a Beavis and Butthead reboot sort of in 2011, which was on MTV still, and the issue with the original series, I feel like would have gotten heavy rotation if it weren't for all the weird issues they had with all the music videos that they talked over, which is a weird licensing problem. And so to circumvent that, MTV decided to have them just watching clips of reality shows. So they would be watching Jersey Shore and like talking about that instead of the music video. I'm really curious to see what Comedy Central has them doing. Like, I wonder if they're going to be watching YouTube videos or like.
Oh,
TikTok.
totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're gonna use TikTok in the show probably.
I'm so stoked. Like, what are they going to, like, I don't know. Like, I want to see what sort of scrapes and scrambles these 2 rascals get themselves into. Like, I don't know. So much is different now. Like, everyone has phones. Like, the internet is like just readily accessible. Weed is legal. I don't even I don't know what kind of stupid things could they possibly do?
Maybe Beavis and Butthead just don't know of any of those things that you just said. Maybe they're like, what? It's legal now? Beavis and Butthead's always one of those shows that I have like a very special relationship with, because it was one of those shows that my parents explicitly forbade me from watching. And so like I would just watch it when they were at work, and I was just enthralled. I didn't really understand any of the humor because I was a child. I think I was in elementary when Beavis and Butthead started getting heavy rotation, and when MTV last played music videos. And recently I was like, I wonder if Beavis and Butthead holds up. I watched Beavis and Butthead Do America, the movie. Incredible film. Incredible film. I think Mike Judge is so good at capturing the humanity in areas of the country that don't normally get a TV show about them. Look at King of the Hill. Office Space. Like this, he knows that humanity lies in like some profound moments that are hilarious, moving, and like some interesting things about culture can be found in the areas that often get overlooked because they're not LA or New York.
And he's so good at like it's finding the humanity, but also the stupidity in any kind of situation. You know, like this is teenage small town stupidity, and then like King of the Hill was like charming, but like kind of suburban stupidity of just like, this is just it's not being like, these people are stupid, we should mock them. It's kind of like these are but you're kind of rooting for them too, you know, like they're getting in, like, I don't know, like Beavis and Butthead always they didn't have their hearts in the right place, but they were as dumb as I feel like most people are when they're teenagers, or at least I was.
Ignorance is bliss kind of thing. Like, I think there's almost an innocence to how ignorant they are with a lot of things, and I think, you know, they are always the same character. They have no growth. But I think that Mike Judge's ability to lampoon pop culture through this blank slate that is Beavis and Butthead is just so good and so funny, because, you know, who doesn't love it when they laugh like it's just it's something that always sticks with me. I adore anything Judge does, so I'm excited to check it out.
One thing I'm very curious to see if they try to tackle it is like shared universes, which they kind of existed in one, like the sort of proto Hank Hill first appeared in Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Daria originally was one of their classmates, and then she moved to a different town and got a different animator and writers. And Comedy Central also scooped up a new Daria spinoff, which is Jodie, which is based on Jodie Landon, who is like the only black character on Daria, who is regularly just sort of like, why do I have to put up with this? Which is like I feel like a good, like I remember one bit where she's like, why do I have to be representative of like everybody who's black? Like that's not fair to me as an individual.
That's great.
But it's going to be weird to see if they like try to, I don't know, sort of stitch that together, or if they do any like, I don't know. I think also just like we're much more open to the idea of like a shared universe than we were back in the 90s.
Yeah,
I can definitely see a
so
crossover
prominent.
episode happening.
Totally. It's actually it's just going to be Beavis and Butthead watching Crank Yankers for an hour. So sorry, guys.
What if they watch South Park? That'll be weird.
Oh man, I think that's too much satire.
But it would get that SEO.
Too meta.
It would get that SEO. Yeah, it's interesting because to echo what Nick was saying, like I wasn't allowed to watch Beavis and Butt-Head. There was a pretty extensive list of television that I wasn't allowed to watch as a child, and Beavis and Butt-Head was definitely one of them. But my dad loved Beavis and Butt-Head, and so it's weird because like I very heavily associate the show with my dad, but I have no context in terms of like, you know, like I get it. Beavis and Butt-Head is part of like the cultural zeitgeist. Did I say that right? Zeitgeist. Like visualizing zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
So I understand it, but I'm like really excited, and I like that there's so many like adult cartoons that are cropping up, because personally I find that that's like the television that I'm drawn to the most. So I don't know. I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it runs the risk though of like having these characters from a specific era try and make it work with a different era that's completely, you know, not one-to-one as the early 90s. So it just, you know, there's that risk.
I want to see what their old friend Stuart is up to. Do you guys recall
Which
Stuart?
one's Stuart? Which one's
Stuart was like kind of their Millhouse. Like he was their neighbor who was like, I don't know, he had parents for starters. Like they weren't just like drifters who disappeared. Like he had supervision, but his parents would be like, they would go over to his house and they'd like try to play his video games, or they would like try to find his dad's porn. And then like there's one where they go to Stuart's house and they like go rooting around in his like dad's closet. And Stuart was like always just like this sort of like husky, like, you know, well-behaved kid. He's like, oh guys, I don't know, we're gonna get in trouble. He's definitely kind of like a proto Butters in a lot of ways. Yeah. But there's one where like the mom comes in and she finds them reading like the dad's porno magazine. And the dad comes in and he's like, Stuart, explain yourself. What is? And the mom's like, Hooters, and it's just like, oh, it's so good, so stupid. And then of course, like Beavis and Butthead don't get disciplined; they just like go home and eat nachos and like, you know, cause a small grease fire or whatever they do. Anyway, so shifting gears to more, I guess, adult animated series. Star Trek Lower Decks has a release date and some new images. This is I'm not a Star Trek guy, but I totally appreciate like the approach they're taking here. This is, of course, this is an animated series, you know, somewhat adult oriented, from one of the Rick and Morty guys, Mike McMahon, who it wanted to do a show that centers on not the people who are out there like going on the cool missions and doing all this stuff, but basically like making the spaceship run. I think, what is it? The quote here is, God, what is it? I want to do a show about the guy who brings the yellow cartridge to the back of the replicator so that a banana comes out the front. So they're like temps. They're like the people who have to actually like, you know, do the grunt work.
I think this might be my first foray into Star Trek because like you, I'm not a big Star Trek guy. I tried. I've never watched The Next Generation. People say that's the one I should watch. I tried watching the original and I was like, I don't think this is for me. But I do like the approach of the behind the scenes style. Like, these aren't your heroes, but they are the people who make the heroes look good. Very much like maybe not quite, but similar in concept to Gotham PD, where it's like just centered around the Gotham Police Department and they have to deal with all the craziness that happens as a result of Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is coming to CBS All Access on Thursday, August 6th. And then it'll be new episodes of the 10-episode first season every week. So there's the bad part is you got to figure out CBS All Access.
I marathon The Next Generation in college. I think as most people do these days in their dorm rooms now. But I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's gonna be funny and weird in two ways. And that one, like, yeah, like who wouldn't like goof around with that like technology? Because like in The Next Generation, they're always so stuffy about all this like futuristic tech. Like they can just materialize food and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, this is a normal part of everyday life. You know, why would you be weird about it? But you absolutely would be weird about it, you know, if you had that technology. I think from a 21st century perspective. So I think it's gonna be funny.
Yeah, to add on just really quickly, everyone should totally watch this. One of my really good friends is a writer on this, and I'm really, really proud of him. So just throwing that out there. If you weren't already convinced, please watch this, and it'll be really funny because he's very funny.
It reminds me a lot of like the work from that guy. I think his name's Olan Rogers, the dude who made Final Space.
Mm.
The animation style, or just art style, I guess, reminds me of that. Kind of like late era Cartoon Network, where it's like, oh no, this is actually, everyone needs to watch this show. This is actually really good. And so the fact that it looks like this is already kind of selling me, like just on some conceptual level. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
So what I really like about this is that it's canonical as far as I can tell. Like it takes place what, 9 years after, 10 years after the last episode of The Next Generation, and 19 years before Picard season 1. So like they put some, like, this is made by hardcore fans. This isn't just like somebody being like, let's just phone it in. But like, I wish we'd get this for Star Wars. Like I want like a weird sitcom about the Mos Eisley Cantina or something now. Like the fact that they're open to be like, yeah, like you can have a serious, like heavy, real Star Trek show, or we can also have a cartoon that exists in the same universe and just has a totally different tone to it.
Man, I would give anything for a 2D Star Wars cartoon? I feel like I haven't seen one of those in forever.
Do you think, like, we were kind of talking about this in terms of how open we are to shared universes now in, like, the age of the MCU? Do you think that ushers in more shows like this are acceptable? Because I feel like there probably was a period of time where if they tried to spin some sort of sitcom, if they tried this in, say, like, the peak of Next Generation, maybe people would be upset.
Probably. There was that animated Star Trek show. You guys ever seen the really old one?
Yeah, I've seen stills of it, or just like small trailers that we use as B-roll for Comic-Con inevitably.
It's very bad in the best way. Like it totally feels like Super Friends or like, Thundar the Barbarian or something. But to go back to what you were saying, Sydney, I think we're seeing a lot more of this, and it actually wouldn't surprise me if we got something like this for Star Wars. But we're getting, let's see, in addition to this, there's also the Harley Quinn HBO Max series, like, or DC, yeah, which is like, it's basically being like, this is a big enough universe to have like a part that's not taking itself seriously. And then we're going to get the What If series on Disney Plus for Marvel, which is basically like, okay, so it's not canon, but it's going to be like, let's get like alternate reality versions of what happened in animated form.
Favorite characters.
I'm super into that.
Yeah, I think one, Harley Quinn on DC Universe is amazing and everybody should watch it. Two, I mean, I don't know. Star Trek, I think, though, does kind of have that, like, it's good that it can branch out now, because I think entertainment's in that medium where you can, like, spin off a show any which way and people will be, like, at least willing to try it out. But, like, wasn't one of the chief criticisms of the J.J. Abrams reboot is that it was too action-y for some long-time Star Trek fans? Like, they really appreciate, like, the more cerebral aspects of the show, and they're like, oh, this is just a popcorn blockbuster and I hate it. Like, wasn't that one of the big... So I don't know, maybe like in this property in particular, it's nice that we're at a place that we can kind of goof around with it, but I remember fans were kind of hesitant to explore something that wasn't like what they remember of the show and series.
I'm curious how much, I mean, at first glance, this seems pretty friendly to people who aren't like really well versed on the Star Trek universe, but I'm curious how much is it just Easter eggs to reward longtime fans? Like, how much knowledge do you actually need to like really get on board with this? I don't know if that information's out there, and I just didn't see it when I was looking into this. But
I mean, I think if it's going to be a successful show, it's going to have to figure out how to appeal to both audiences. Your longtime fans who will appreciate something to add context that happened to, Picard or whatever back in the day, but it'll fall on deaf ears for fans like me. I'm like, oh, well, that was just really clever and that was really fun. And, the fact that I feel like we got to a point with like pop culture where if there's something cool that happens and an audience member is like, I feel like this is alluding to something that I'm not fully understanding, that kind of sends an audience member down a Wikipedia rabbit hole where we now have the means to be able to watch the Next Generation episode season 3, episode 45, where this particular thing is referencing. So like, it's super accessible to become a super fan now. And I think it's up to creators now to kind of find a way to ignite that same passion they experience for people who they might be bringing onto the ship for the first time.
Well, it's like that whole like post-credit scene logic of, you know, if you go see a superhero movie with somebody who isn't tapped into comic books, like let's say you go and you saw Venom and then you stayed till the end of the credits and then suddenly it's like, oh, I'm here to talk to Mr. Cassidy, and it's just like Woody Harrelson, like, there's gonna be carnage. You'd be like, who was that? Why is he here? What is he saying? What does this mean? And then you go home and you go on, I don't know, your favorite entertainment website, such as IGN.com, and it's like the post-credit scene explained, and it's like that. I mean, there's so much of information is so like readily accessible that I think that, you know, it's definitely, I don't think it's going to beat people over the head with like, you know, like in Star Trek references. It'll be kind of clever, like actual Easter eggs and nods, but. It's also, I feel like the timing of it is good, where they could totally get cast from Next Generation who are still around to, you know, do guest roles or, you know.
And I think Picard season 1 is already over. So like it's, you know, we've kind of come into the Marvel release schedule where it's like, okay, well, this movie came out, but now in 3 months, this other movie is going to come out. So I think a lot of franchises are looking at like, how do we inundate Star Trek without it being overwhelming? And how do we give fans the drip feed of the content they desire?
Yep. Well, right now we've got Lower Decks is coming on, what is it, August 6th. And then there is Discovery Season 3, sometime this year. There's Star Trek Picard Season 2, currently being written. There's the Section 31 spinoff starring Michelle Yeoh. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which has Anson Mounts, Captain Pike, and crew. I just, someone else wrote these notes. That got greenlit. And then there's there's an animated series in the works at Nickelodeon. And apparently one more live. So yeah, they're definitely they're keeping busy with Star Trek. Yeah,
maybe there might be too much Star Trek.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, if you look at Star Wars, though, there's a ton of Star Wars. I know that's like such an easy thing to make a comparison to because the names are so similar, but there is a lot. Like there's a lot of Marvel, there's a lot of DC now, there's a lot of Star Wars. So I guess it makes sense that Star Trek would also do a lot of like content options thing.
But I wouldn't know. I wouldn't say that having a lot is working out for any of those other properties. You know?
Oh no, I don't disagree with you. I'm like really curious when we're gonna get to like the peak where people just can't keep, like, is it gonna be something where we all have to just choose one thing to be a fan of? Like, are we all just like half fans of a bunch of things? Like, I think we're approaching that. So I'm definitely not advocating for more of more.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that it's following that trend.
I think studios have learned that it doesn't really work if you just carpet bomb content, just, you know, throughout the entire year, because like that was kind of the biggest criticism of the Disney era of Star Wars. Disney era as in like, you know, it's still ongoing. I'm not talking about in the past tense, but like I think as a result of like outspoken criticism for like, this is too much, guys. I think we've seen a brakes being pulled for Star Wars just a bit. And I'd be curious to see when we actually get another Star Wars movie, you know, because right now it's just The Mandalorian and then whatever Dave Filoni's inevitably working on in addition to that, probably a Star Wars Rebels show that's a live action version. But I do think studios are aware, like, okay, there is such a thing as too much of a franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm just on a sort of flip side of what the cultural significance of this is. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of animated shows popping up in the wake of quarantine. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw sort of this. I think it was when there was the writer's strike in what was that, 2007 or so. Like there wound up being this sudden sort of deluge of like unscripted content and, you know, reality TV showing up because it was like, oh, we don't need writers for that, I guess. You know, like how do we circumvent like a weird issue that's, you know, the whole industry is dealing with? And I think like, yeah, I would be unsurprised to find out in a few years from now if like some popular animated series that pops up was originally being pitched as a live action show and then got greenlit as like a, you know, Adult Swim type animated series or what have you.
We've already seen that with like I don't think anyone here watches The Blacklist, but I thought it was super interesting that their final episode of a season, or it might have even been their series finale, I don't really know, but they just made it animated, which I was like,
so bad.
I was like, they tried. It was a live action show that they just like, oh, well, because of quarantine, we're just going to animate it now. And it was like, it was kind of like budget looking. What was that?
Like an early 2000s like video game cutscene.
Yeah, what was that Richard Linklater movie where it's like animated?
Scanner Darkly.
Yeah, it looked like a budget version of a Scanner Darkly.
Rotoscoping.
Like your Walmart era Scanner Darkly graphics package.
I mean, it looked like a Telltale game running on an Android phone. Like it was rough.
But we've already seen it happen, is what I'm saying. And I think we're gonna see better versions of what Blacklist tried to do. You know, like hats off to them. Like they tried to make it work, and you know, sometimes it doesn't work.
Maybe this will end the whole let's turn every animated thing into a live action component.
Yeah,
which I'm decidedly
that's such a weird
against.
That's such a weird flip side. Like to reach a point where it's actually more sustainable to do an animated thing than a live action thing because of this hellscape that is 2020. That's a novel concept. Dear God. Anyway, here's something I never thought I'd say out loud. Jason Momoa is voicing Frosty the Snowman in a live action motion picture.
Good for him. Congrats.
I mean, good for him. Don't get me wrong. And this is me being super precious about things. But like, what's wrong with are those actually claymation? I don't know. What's wrong with like the Frosty the Snowman that's just kind of like creepy and cool?
All right, guys.
My biggest issue with Frosty the Snowman is he doesn't seem like he has tons of sex, and I think this is finally going to remedy that. Because
I wonder what his Frosty. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
No, you think they're gonna make him hot just because he's voiced by Jason Momoa?
Like he's like super chiseled.
Yeah,
absolutely. He was just
I
designed.
wonder what his Frosty voice is. Like, is he gonna try and make it like higher? Because I feel like Frosty the Snowman, like you want to give it a hug, not like rub your body on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like a really like keen distinction, and I feel like Jason Momoa just like really confuses that whole thing.
I mean, the script writes itself. We're thinking of so many visual gags that are going to happen in the movie. This is great. But I'm going to say this. There's only one hot snowman, and that hot live-action snowman is Michael Keaton in Jack Frost.
Get out.
That's my Frosty, okay? No one will ever surpass the live-action perfection that is Jack Frost.
Is that the one that tries to kill Shannon Elizabeth in a bath? Or is that a different? That's the same Jack Frost?
No, wait, no. Jack Frost is the romantic comedy. I think he's like in a car and
there's
he drives off
Jack
the road.
Frost where he like is trying to kill Shannon Elizabeth in the shower or the bath or something, right? Like that's
a horror one. That
I can't. A snowman can only look so many ways, so I get these things confused.
This is just the beginning of the Frosty cinematic universe where we have a bunch of competing snowmen. Fight it out to the one genre to rule them out. Is it rom-com? Is it horror? Is it a live-action adventure? Who knows?
So, okay, my question is, did they say, is this still going to be, like, singing? Because Frosty the Snowman had a lot of singing. Right?
I would hope
Does Jason Momoa sing?
I'm sure he can sing.
He seems
whether
like
he's
he
good at
sing.
it or not, you know?
I mean, yes, I don't doubt that he possesses the ability to sing at like varying levels of success, but like, is this still going to be a musical? And then like, is this opening up a whole thing like what Disney's doing with their animated movies, where now we're going to see like the reindeer with the red nose? What's his name?
How do you forget that?
There's so many. There's a song about him.
You know,
I'm a very visual person, and so in my head I was just thinking of the reindeer with the red nose, and then I forgot the name that comes with it. But
who's the guy? He has the big beard and has like the big sack with presents.
No, but I remember I had like a whole set of them. There's like a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, claymation shorts. Yeah,
those were the Rankin Bass cartoons. Yeah,
and they were wonderful. But like, are we gonna just see like a bunch of live action versions of this? I don't know. Sorry, this makes it sound like I'm super against live action. I kind of am.
To be made,
but I just.
I don't know if this is necessarily based on that. I don't know. What are the rights of Frosty the Snowman? Like,
I don't know. Is it a folktale now?
Yeah,
I think it's a Burl Ives song.
It's got to be public domain by now.
I'm sure they could. And if not, he could just play, Frosty and not call him
Frosty
Snowman.
the Snowman.
Yeah.
So it was a song long before it was an animated series.
Yeah.
Like it was first recorded by Gene Autry in 1950.
And
And
do you think Gene's estate, does he still get royalties from it? Like for the IP, the Snowman IP?
Maybe his
I don't
estate?
Well, he recorded it, but it was Walter Jack Rollins and Steve Nelson who wrote the song.
Well,
who
then
also
maybe they got...
Look, if they wanted to, I'm sure they could sue from the grave.
he co-wrote Here Comes Peter Cottontail, and he also did the Smokey the Bear song, which I don't even know.
I was just say, how does
Smokey the Bear?
That's what I was going to.
I mean, I feel like arguably that's the most important song that everyone should know is the Smokey the Bear song.
I feel like let's go back to Jay.
Roll.
I would rather see Jason Momoa playing Smokey the Bear than Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah.
Also,
I see that more.
At the very least, it's like he's getting out of character because I feel like an Aquaman to a snowman is like you're just like you're converting a liquid to a solid there. That's all it is.
I just
but
wonder.
Maybe that's in character. He's trying to stay in the same element.
I wonder if those like Rankin Bass, Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, do they have the same peel anymore? Because like I'm not normally one to say the word boomer, but nothing is more indicative of a boomer era than Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed.
Excuse me, Nick. I am actually technically a millennial, and I really like those.
I mean,
I'm just throwing
but
that out
I feel like our particular generation, Sid, is the last vestige of this like classic appeal of Christmas that I feel like is slowly waning. Like,
well, that's why they got Jason Momoa to use.
Aquaman is Frosty.
Aquaman is Frosty. Remember, kid? This is the stuff.
What happens in Frosty the Snowman? Does he melt? And then isn't there a bad guy?
He kills Shannon Elizabeth in a bathtub. I told you.
And then he drives his car off a bridge.
He gets a hat,
keep up.
and then he sings, and that's
he tries to kill himself, and then his angel talks him out of it. Everyone's seen that movie.
And then he tries to get with his ex-wife.
Because I'm just trying to think of like who's going to be cast opposite of, like who else is in the rest of the cast, and also like he's like really large man. Is he like? Do they have to cast people who are even larger than him to help with the proportions?
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Out real quick, but this was a great show as always.
Okay, that's fair.
Bye,
I'm
Matt.
glad we got your thoughts on Jason Momoa as Frosty the Snowman.
It's gonna work, I think.
Hot snowman confirmed.
It's confusing. Do we need that?
I got to meet Jason Momoa at Comic-Con a couple years ago. All good. Yeah, I got to meet Jason Momoa at Comic-Con. I interviewed him for Aquaman, and that dude is like, he is a cartoonish, like he is like literally like when people say like larger than life. We had this stage for a Comic-Con show, which is like on these risers, and he stepped onto it, and it was like somebody parked a car on it, like it's just like thump, and he had a wallet chain that was just like a regular chain. Like, and he's just like, I'm a big dude. He's enormous. He's like 6'4", but he's just like entirely muscle, and he smells like a candle store.
He has like a welcoming aura, though. He's not intimidating in the normal sense of the word, where he's like, oh, this is a scary man. More so like this man can crush me with a hug, but a warm, soft hug.
But this still brings up, he's a large man who's playing, oh wait, I lost the CGI Frosty in the hybrid CG live action film. I'm trying to figure out in my head how they make him look like Frosty the Snowman.
I think what they're probably, I think they're going to do, it's not, I feel like doing a hybrid CGI snowman is like, if you want to phone it in, you got some good options there, because really you just need three balls, like 3 spheres of even sizes. And then you got the cone for the nose, or a dot, I guess, whichever. Like, you don't need that. You could make this, you could render a good snowman in like a PS1 graphics. And like, you don't need to do like, you don't have to make him look like Thanos. Like, he can just be like a funny snowman. This is going to be a weird movie.
Every grain of snow. You know how you can usually see it where it gets kind of icy?
I feel like they're gonna do some like some Weta stuff, and they're just like every single snowflake compromised Frosty's body is unique, like real snowflakes. We use procedural generation to do real time mocap of Jason Momoa's rippling biceps. This is gonna
How does the song go?
I don't want to sing it because I want to get it stuck in their head. This movie is either gonna make $1 billion or $700. There's not gonna be like.
This feels like Cats to me. I'm going to put out my prediction. I'm always rooting for everyone to succeed because I think there's enough room for everybody to succeed, which is what I just said. But I am going to say that this turns into like a Cats situation where they get a bunch of huge names attached to it and somehow everybody on the inside thinks it's like a wonderful idea.
I think you're dead on.
And then it comes out and everyone's just like, how did this get made? And why is this happening? And do you truly believe that this was a good idea?
Well, now we have to all watch it though when it comes out.
I'm excited. I'm excited to cover this. I'm really just pumped to keep track of all the announcements coming out about this. I hope we get even more crazy casting rumors attached to this. More great. I hope they get the entire. They reunite the whole cast of the DCU. They get Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot and Ray Fisher to play all the kids, but they'll be mocap kids. They'll get like CGI children. Like
Henry Cavill couldn't make it because he wouldn't shave his. He had to shave his beard for. He
plays Santa Claus. They give him a CGI beard.
There you go.
God, no, this is, I don't know, this is going to be such a weird one to follow because it's, I don't know, I feel like occasionally they announce movies like this and it's like sounds totally ludicrous, and then by the time it actually comes out, it becomes completely normalized, and you're like, yeah, who couldn't have pictured Jason Momoa as Frosty the Snowman?
The one definitive snowman, Jason Momoa.
Good for him.
Yeah, there's got to be an alternate timeline somewhere where people discuss the casting of new Frosties, like we discuss like new James Bonds or new Wolverines or whatever, where it's like, who could possibly carry the mantle of this iconic role? Anyway,
the through line for all the movies lines up so narratively it all makes sense that there's different people playing different snowmen, just like James Bond. It all works.
Yes. Well, no. Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because after like winter has to end sometime, and so the snow has to melt, and the Frosty has to die, and then the next year brings new snow and a new Frosty with a new voice.
Yeah, and the sequels come to all sorts of great new streaming video platforms or direct-to-video originals.
Does Frosty get turned into a real man?
No, he turns into water. He dies. He turns
no, but doesn't he want the hat? I can't remember how it ends. He wants the hat, right? Because it makes him alive.
I think the hat makes him come to life, but I don't think he becomes flesh and blood. Like, he stays water.
So he does die with every season.
He melts and they find a corpse inside him, and it turns out he was a real man the whole time, brought to life.
It's like Disturbia. People are hiding their corpses inside of snowmen instead of their walls.
I was going to say like it's like New York in the wintertime, and they're sometimes corpses in the snowbanks, but oh well. Oh boy.
This was good.
I got to rewatch Disturbia then.
It really, I don't know how you, I like Disturbia. It's a fun movie, but also I do not know how you went there from Frosty the Snowman.
Well, you said corpses, and I was thinking of where corpses shouldn't be, and I was like, in walls, like the movie Disturbia. But it's funny, so this is like such a tangent, but when that movie came out, I'm still very afraid of horror movies, but I remember everyone at school was like, Disturbia, so good. And I was playing soccer, and I was the youngest person on my team, and so like I was kind of like the little sister on the team where people would just tell me like misinformation. I was very gullible. And this girl told me how Disturbia ended, and so I was like, oh, I know how Disturbia ends. And then I watched it. It does not end like that. She told me.
How did she tell you it ends?
I think she said, well, now I don't remember how the actual Disturbia ends, but it's whatever the opposite is. Like, if they do get away, it's that they didn't get away. Well, I don't know which one it is. So now you have to watch to figure out which ending it is.
She actually just spoiled the ending of Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. So you just got those two mixed up.
There we go.
Very weird.
Yeah, so anyway, Disturbia, available on streaming platforms near you. Go see the hit 2007, 7, 8. Yeah, was that?
It was in high school for me, so it was like 2007 or 8, yeah.
And the director of Eagle Eye, starring everyone's favorite, Shia LaBeouf.
Wait, it's the director of Eagle Eye?
No, I don't know.
I thought it was.
So the child from Eagle Eye, this is getting out of hand. He played a young Ryan Ross from the band Panic at the Disco in one of their music videos.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we have about a minute left here, so here's a weird story we probably should have spent more time talking about. Aside from, Frosty the Snowman, the actor who played Cyborg in Justice League, Ray Fisher, slammed Joss Whedon on Twitter, saying that his on-set treatment of the cast and crew was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. And that he forcefully retracted his kind statements he made earlier. And then I don't know. It's just like, yeah, he said that John Berg and DC film execs Jeff Johns enabled all sorts of bad behavior. And we don't really have more to go on than this. It's just kind of his tweets. And then I think there was a statement from Berg being like, I remember Fisher being upset that we wanted him to say booyah, which is a well-known saying of Cyborg in the animated series, which is a weird way of sort of deflecting it. This is just a movie that really, it never stops stirring up new controversy and new weird problems. I just don't even know what to say anymore.
Yeah, people can't stop talking about it. But I do think this is an interesting conversation to be had, though, because like we are in an era where the gaming industry has come into this like it's a light is being shined on a relatively new industry in the video game industry. And I think that light is going to kind of pan over to the film industry, which kind of has the stereotype of like, hey man, that's just the movie business. This is, if you want to make it big, you're going to have to put in hard hours and lots of time. And you know what? Sometimes you're going to work with directors who are real hard to work with, but it's all worth it. And I think we are coming to a point where there is going to be a sort of like reevaluation of labor practices in the film industry because it's gone without it for so long. Mm-hmm. So it's like, come on, this is needed.
Anyway, that is a very good point, Nick. We should have probably talked about that more than Jason Momoa as Frosty the Snowman.
Talking about Disturbia.
He's a hot snowman.
Disturbia is a fun movie. It's a guilty pleasure.
I didn't see that we had more to talk about.
Anyway, we've got lots more to talk about. What day is it? What's Wednesday today? So there's another one of these tomorrow. There's another one of these tomorrow, and then you can tune in on my show up at noon, where we will talk about Frosty the Snowman for upwards of an hour and a half. Probably. We love to talk about snowmen on that show. Nick, Sydney, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a hoot. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.